Which 2024 Samsung OLED TV should you get? The excellent S90D or the more premium flagship S95D? I have them both in my studio for comparison, and after watching them side by side, I'll go over the differences to help you decide which is best for you. From audio quality to image quality for movies, streaming, and sports, we have you covered. Beginning with the obvious and most expensive difference is this One Connect box that is unique to the S95D. So why separate the input-output from the TV? Like most TVs have all of this on the TV itself. With the S95D, the One Connect box pulls it off the TV. This allows the TV to be lighter and easier to carry, right? And it looks a lot thinner, more streamlined. So cosmetics cost money for sure. But the S95D is not just a pretty face for the One Connect box. This video is sponsored by Paris Rhone. Introducing the Paris Rhone LCD 4K projector. Are you ready to elevate your movies from a 65-inch TV to over 100 inches of home entertainment magic? Get ready to immerse yourself in the breathtaking visuals of a 100 to 200-inch true 4K resolution with 600 ANSI lumens of brightness in this compact projector. With a contrast ratio of up to 1300 to 1, every scene comes to life with stunning clarity. Experience the magic of the big screen from the comfort of your own home. The Paris Rhone projector brings the theater to you. But it's not just about visuals. Protect your eyes with blue light reduction technology while indulging in high-fidelity surround sound. Access over 7,000 apps, including favorites like Disney+, Amazon Video, and Netflix right at your fingertips. And with intelligent screen adaptive features like autofocus and 4-point auto keystone correction, setup is a breeze. So order now with my exclusive discount code and bring the Paris Rhone LCD 4K projector home today. A less obvious difference between the S95D and the S90D is the OLED panel technology. Now, the 55 and 65 inch for both the S95D and S90D are QD-OLED. However, the S95D for sure, 55, 65, and 77 inches are third generation QD-OLED, whereas on the S90D, only the 55 and 65 inch have been confirmed to be QD-OLED, whereas the smaller 48 inch, whenever it comes out, and the larger 83 inch are WOLED. And so those differences, we don't know because I don't have a WOLED version of that TV. And within the QD-OLED 55 and 65 inch, we feel that, or we believe that the S95D will be third generation for 2024, whereas the S90D may be using second generation. Is there a difference? We can compare that because I have 65-inch size for both the S95D and the S90D. And what about the 77-inch S90D? There's a possibility they'll be mixing WOLED with QD-OLED. I haven't had confirmation for the USA about that. And again, I've only been confirmed for the USA that the 55 and 65 inch S90D will be QD-OLED for certain. The rest of the world, we don't know. So let's start with TV audio. The specs show that the S95D has 70 watts, whereas the S90D only has 40 watts. But does that make a big difference? Now, I listened to both of these TVs at length with audio that I've selected and have uploaded to YouTube for you to check out if you want to test your TV with the same audio. And there is definitely a difference between these two TVs. But before I tell you my conclusions, why don't you listen to the differences yourself? I tried to accurately capture the audio experience of both TVs using the Sonic Presence SP15 XLR Binaural Pro mic, plugged directly into the preamp of my Sony camera. Both TVs have their volume set to 80 on the S95D and the S90D.
You got my attention, baby. I can't make a move. One, one, one shot. Now the future is yours. Yeah, I was building on the next shit. One shot. Now the future is yours. Yeah, I was building on the next shit. Verses coming daily under pressure. Working on the plot and the scheme. The true style trademark is at the edge of your dreams. I'm talking one. Working on the plot and the scheme. The true style trademark is at the edge of your dreams. I'm talking one.
So both TVs were set at 80. The volume is definitely loud enough for dialogue, but the differences are twofold. First, the S95D, more diffuse sound, larger stereo, larger soundstage. It was quite obvious. Must be that DSP AI magic they were talking about. But the S90D, although lacks that ambiance, diffuse sound, it had more mid-bass, more full range. And I think this is more important to most people. So if you get the S95D, you may have to get a subwoofer and soundbar. The S90D, definitely in my book, feels like it's louder, fuller. S95D, although wide, big diffuse sound, I don't know, missing a bit of mid-bass, and I think that's because the One Connect Box allows the TV to be thinner, but maybe too thin to carry the right speakers for that oomph that the S90D has. Next up is sports content. You want to watch sports. Both TVs are phenomenal for sports. As a matter of fact, I'm quite surprised at how good the S90D is for sports compared to the S95D. They are nearly identical. So the S90D is slightly brighter than last year's amazing S90C. My editor's choice definitely at the 77-inch last year. This year, the S90D is just that slightly brighter than the S90C for sports watching. And more importantly, it appears to have preserved brightness over the course of watching something like hockey. Normally, when you're watching hockey, right, bright white scene, it dims over time. It appears to have addressed that. It doesn't dim as much, definitely not as noticeable as before. And the S95D similarly holds on to that brightness, but it feels like the S95D is just that much brighter, right? Just a little bit. And only when they're side by side do I notice that. If I had the S90D and the S95D in a separate room, walked into one room, oh, it's bright. Walk into the other room, oh, it's just as bright. They are that close. So both highly recommended for sports watching, upscaling, very similar. So low bit rate, as far as sports motion, it's fine. I thought they looked phenomenal. And what you've all been waiting for, how do they look? S95D versus S90D for movies, streaming content. They look great. As a matter of fact, 99% of the time, indistinguishable. They look the same. Both TVs set to their most accurate filmmaker mode like the creators intended, and if I was to say there was a difference, the S95D is a touch brighter here and there, but it's not noticeable unless I have them next to each other. And in the dark scenes, the S95D looks just like the S90D. So 99% of the time, you will not know the difference. We're going to talk about that, if it's worth that 1%. I had to find the scenes, but ultimately, that 1% difference is this. The S95D has better tone mapping in brighter specular highlights. There's more detail. So specifically, I had to pull out Spears and Munsell, put it in 2000 nit or 10,000 nit content. Really bright content that you don't normally see. That's the 1%. And now, like for example, in this cloud scene, you're going to see that on the S95D, there's more cloud detail and it's a little bit brighter. On the S90D, just a little bit flatter. And it appears to me that the S95D maybe has better tone mapping processing. And this makes sense because if you look on the spec sheet, right, on the S95D, the processor is called OLED HDR Pro, and on the S90D, it's only called OLED HDR Plus, although both share the same processor. The algorithm on the S95D is clearly superior, so OLED HDR Pro definitely shows a difference over OLED HDR Plus. Next up is that controversial glare-free coating, the matte anti-glare. Wow, enough has been said about that, pretty much because I dedicated an entire live stream on the S95D to talk about it. While the S90D has the traditional gloss with a slight anti-glare coating, the S95D has that matte glare-free coating that's very aggressive in terms of fighting the glare, or does it? So if you watched my live stream, right, you'll notice that the glare is actually way worse on the S95D when direct light is on it, meaning bright light. So we're talking a bright lamp, bright sun, right? Something that's super bright that directly hits the screen. Not good. It just spreads the entire brightness over a larger part of the screen, making that area almost unwatchable. Perfect example, use case that you want to avoid this anti-glare S95D matte screen is you have floor-to-ceiling windows, east facing, west facing, where the sun is rising or setting. In direct line of sight of your TV, no bueno, because it will just, boom, everything will just be washed out. Not watchable at all. So the S95D, in those conditions with that glare coating, with that anti-glare coating, can't use it. Even if you don't have such windows, but you have a super bright LED that's in the background behind you, you're watching TV, this light needs to be turned off. Otherwise, you will see it on the TV spread across the entire width scope of the TV. It doesn't look good. However, there is a use case for this anti-glare, which is you're in a bright, ambiently bright room, right? There's no direct light behind you or anywhere, more like diffuse brightness all around because Best Buy, Costco, right? That's kind of viewing condition. If your house is like a Costco, super bright fluorescent lights on top, then this TV will prevent the mirror image of yourself on the TV, meaning you're standing in front of the TV. When the TV is off, normal TVs, you see yourself, right? Right there, reflecting off of the TV. And then when you're watching content in darker scenes, you still see yourself. On the S95D, that's not the case. You don't see any reflections at all. So if that's an issue in your home, then the S95D glare-free layer may be perfect for you. However, this is a big caveat. You need to bring it home to check it out because every room condition is different and see if this anti-glare coating is for you. But if your room is completely dark, light controlled like I have, the S95D looks phenomenal. I don't think the anti-glare coating actually affects it at all in a dark room. What about gaming? Consistent with Samsung. Both TVs are excellent for gaming. I know specifically what about the One Connect Box issues. It's still early, but it appears that they may have addressed the dropouts, but don't take my word for it. It's definitely game specific, resolution specific. I mean, who knows? It may be an issue later in the year. This is not a gaming dedicated video. That's another video for another time, but so far, so good. Now remember, neither TV has Dolby Vision, so you're not going to have Dolby Vision gaming. Not like it's a big deal, but they do support HDR10 Plus gaming for PC gamers. Other than that, expect most of the same from these two Samsung TVs. Most importantly, what about value? S95D, 25% more expensive than the S90D. So, is this worth that premium? For sure, this flagship TV looks flagship. Now, both remote looks the same, so that's great for the S90D. It shares a very awesome remote. However, on the S95D, you have the One Connect Box, very premium, but there is a compromise. Audio is not as loud and powerful as the S90D, although a bit more diffuse, a bit more stereophonic, so to speak, and its tone mapping processor, right, that Pro HDR processor, it does look better because more detail, clearly a step above this TV, but it's not bad, meaning if you're coming from a slightly older LCD TV or even an older OLED, this qd-oled, quantum-dot-oled, is going to be a bit brighter, holding onto that brightness for sports a bit better. S95D, similar, so both share that in common, but tone mapping is just that much more premium on this one. But if you're watching just regular streaming content, they're going to be indistinguishable. It's in the most challenging content where the best of the best, you enthusiasts out there, the S95D does deliver on tone mapping. Now, which would I choose? Well, I'm an enthusiast, right? I watch in the dark. Glare is not an issue. I would choose the S95D because when I compared it to the S95C, Yes, the tone mapping is also superior to that, whereas the S90D was very similar to the S95C, so it feels like maybe the S95C just handed over its tone mapping algorithm to the S90D, which is fine. S95C was last year's flagship, but this clearly is a superior tone mapping system. And for me, I watch a lot of Spears and Munsell because that's what I do, and that to me is important. But most of you, I don't think will make a huge difference for you all. Wait before you ask. I know you're asking. I love the S95D, but what about the G4? Yes, that comparison is coming up on a 2-day live stream at Valley Electronics in about 2 weeks, April 20th. So the G4 versus the S95D versus the 8K QN900D versus the Sony A95L. Let me know which one you think is going to be your TV in 2024. Until next time, stop the FOMO.